Do you know that North Africa has been a territory for the dissemination of knowledge since ancient times? Both in the cities and in the countryside? In this video, we will focus on Algeria, a territory of education and knowledge during the pre-Islamic period before tackling this theme for the period after the advent of Islam. What teaching system was found in the schools of ancient Algeria? What were the cities of knowledge? Finally, which personalities left their mark on the pre-Islamic period?
Let us first recall, as an Algerian historian and archaeologist explains well, in a work devoted to the ancient cities of Algeria, that North Africa in antiquity was one of the most urbanized regions of the Mediterranean basin. While Gaul was at that time a deeply rural province, North Africa, and in particular the territory of what today constitutes part of Algeria, was organized around the city. The city dwellers were in fact developing an urban culture. An education system was established.
Education system. Sometimes harsh but effective teaching. Municipalities and wealthy citizens multiplied schools, without any intervention from the state, even in the villages, indicated Charles-André Julien, French historian and journalist, specialist in North Africa. He added, North African schoolchildren first learned to read, write and count under the authority of a teacher, then if they continued their studies, completed their humanities under the direction of a grammarian who made them learn the classics by heart, explained the rules of grammar to them, took care of their pronunciation, taught them literature and made them compose Latin speeches. It is likely that he also instilled in them notions of music, metrics, philosophy, mathematics and astronomy.
In the course of studies, the child's passage with the grammarian prepared him to profitably receive the teaching of the rhetorician. According to Lucius Aulus, former university professor in France, at around 17, the gifted or wealthy schoolboy abandoned the grammarian for the teachers of the big cities, the rhetoricians. They learned how to use paradoxes, and the school exercises aimed to develop eloquence, literature, history, philosophy. Everything took an oratorical form among the professor rhetors. A poet by the name of Juvenal described this Africa where the rhetorician was king as the nurse of lawyers.
Ancient cities of Algeria, cities of knowledge. Cirta, one of the oldest cities in Algeria, was first the capital of the Kingdom of Numidia, then the provincial capital, administrative Africa Nova. It is to the Roman Emperor Constantine I that the city of Cirta, since the year 313, owes its current name, Constantine. About 100 kilometers south of Constantine stands the ancient city of Timgad, listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1982. Nicknamed the Pompeii of North Africa, Timgad has yielded inscriptions of an exceptional wealth thanks to which archaeologists have detailed information on municipal elites in the 4th century. In addition, inscriptions found at Timgad in so-called primitive tiny letters, according to the terminology of experts, are a new writing, a mutation, introduced in the 3rd century by North African intellectuals. This new writing was at the origin of all the common Latin writings of the eras that followed. The Timgad library bears witness to the cultural vitality of the region, a unique library of its kind, specified Charles-André Julien. It was there that we found, for the first time, the ruins of one of these public libraries frequently mentioned in inscriptions and Latin texts. Many cabinets must have contained the manuscripts which also filled the lockers of 3 annex storage rooms. Perhaps 23,000 volumes could be thus classified in a relatively small space.
Madaure or Madaure, a major center of cultural influence, had one of the first universities on the African continent and was attended by great personalities of the ancient world. On the southern shore of the Mediterranean, Cirta, Caesarea, Timgad, Hip-1, Thagast, Madaure, to name just a few ancient cities of present-day Algeria, saw the birth, formation and flourishing of personalities often bilingual, with a curious and erudite mind.
Personalities of ancient Algeria. Juba II, king of a vast kingdom. Juba II, born 52 before Christ, died 23 after the death of Jesus. From a line of North African kings, was as son of Juba I, descendant of Massinissa and Jugurtha. In the year 25 before Christ, Juba II, who had received a Greco-Roman education in Rome, became king of Mauritania. His kingdom was vast. It extended from the Atlantic to part of the territory of present-day Tunisia. The Kingdom of Mauritania brought together Tangitan Mauritania, Caesarean Mauritania and Cetophian Mauritania, Caesarea of Mauritania. Today Churchill became the capital of the kingdom and rivaled Carthage and Rome. Multiple public buildings were built under his leadership: squares, forums, thermal baths, theaters, libraries. The reign of Juba II was judged positively by ancient historians. The Greek historian Plutarch described him as one of the best statesmen of his time, but it was above all his reputation as a scholar which remained even more memorable. Affirmed Pliny, author of an encyclopedia, Juba II was a polyglot Amazigh king. Scholar and explorer of new lands, Juba II wrote all kinds of works on painting, theater, poetry, grammar, geography, archaeology, history, medicine, and natural sciences.
Macrinus, Emperor. In the year 217, in the 3rd century, a personality from Caesarean Mauritania was proclaimed Roman emperor. Apuleius Macrinus, known as Macrinus, an Amazigh born in Caesarea, Churchill, was a Roman emperor of Mauritanian ancestry. Today we would say of Algerian origin. On the personality of Macrinus, the French historian Amédée Thierry wrote, coming from a modest background, Macrinus had acquired the reputation of a learned and honest jurisconsult. Named Praefectus Praetorio, officer senior official, he conducted himself in this difficult place with an uprightness which earned him the esteem of all.
Petilianus, born in Cirta, in 365, today Constantine, Petilianus was a brilliant lawyer and orator, engaged in debates within the church as evidenced by his speeches and his written works.
Apuleius of Madaure. Lucius Apuleius, by his Latin name or Apuleius in Tamazert, was an extraordinary scholar, born around 125 in Madaure, Madaure, near Souk Aras, in Algeria. Attached to his Amazigh and African origins, which he had claimed many times, Apuleius was a mathematician, astronomer, doctor, translator, jurist, writer, philosopher, author of numerous poems and philosophical commentaries. His novel Metamorphoses, composed of 11 volumes, also known under the title The Golden Donkey, made his reputation. His novel still fascinates many readers around the world to this day.
Gaius Marius Victorinus Afer, Gaius Marius Victorinus, known as Afer, born in 290 in Tifech, near Thagaste, was a renowned professor of rhetoric, respected for his encyclopedic knowledge. Philosopher, author of numerous commentaries and works including the Book of the 24 Philosophers. His name is also listed among the Latin Fathers of the Church. The statue of Marius Victorinus, Amazigh, Roman citizen, appeared in the Forum of Trajan in Rome, a public space where statues of illustrious figures from the cultural life of the Roman Empire stood.
Elias Donatus, Dona. Around 315, a certain Elias Donatus known as Dona was born. He was bishop of Bari. Starting from the Oris, Wilaya of Ranchala, Dona traveled the country, preaching, organizing, and symbolizing African resistance against the official Catholic Church on the one hand, and the Roman Empire, on the other hand. Elias Donatus was at the origin of the schism that bears his name, Donatism, which divided Christians during the 4th century. A statue on a fountain in Nuremberg, Germany, illustrates the character of Dona. Dona left several writings, and is notably the author of a treatise on Latin grammar. This treatise is far from being negligible. It is a manual in which 12 centuries have learned Latin. Clarified Louis Holtz, former professor at the University of Lyon II. For specialists, Dona's grammar represents an unforgettable monument of ancient civilization.
Aurelius Augustinus or Saint Augustine. Aurelius Augustinus or Saint Augustine was born on November 13, 354 in Thagaste, present-day Souk Aras, Algeria, and died on August 28, 430 in Hippo Regius, present-day Annaba, Algeria. He was a Christian philosopher and theologian who had been bishop of Hippo Regius in Numidia. Berber through his mother, Muna or Monarch, Augustine said he was keenly aware of his Africanness and played a leading role in the evolution of the notion of justice, celestial and human. It was in Thagast and in the small neighboring university town Madaure whose establishments enjoyed a reputation that he acquired training, which the historian Charles-André Julien described as solid. This training gave him the keys to understanding and being understood by the literati of the Roman world. In his work Confessions, Book 1, St. Augustine gave his appreciation of the teaching he had received at Thagast and Madaure, in particular, Latin grammar and rhetoric. And although traumatized by the harshness of his teachers, this precocious and gifted child from Auris wrote several treatises now lost, at least 90 works, on grammar, dialectics, rhetoric, geometry, arithmetic and philosophy. Considered one of the four fathers of the Church, St. Augustine became one of the most influential thinkers in the Western world. All currents of the Church celebrate him or are inspired by him. Even Luther, the reformer of the Church, was first a member of the Order of St. Augustine. The thought of St. Augustine greatly influenced the 17th century in Europe. It remained one of the sources of French classical literature and was also a source of inspiration for the great German philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
Maxime of Mador. Born in Thagast at the end of the 4th century, of Amazigh origin, he was a famous grammarian, orator and professor at the University of Madaure. One of his letters, preserved to this day, reflects his exchanges with St. Augustine. This letter was a source of inspiration for Voltaire, a major figure in French literature, who in 1766 wrote in a notice on Maxime de Mador. The Maxime, in question here, was an African born in Madaure, in the country which is today that of Algiers. He lived at the beginning of the destruction of the Roman Empire. Madaure, a city considerable for its commerce, was even more considerable for humanities. Madaure had seen the birth of Apuleius and Maximus. Saint Augustine, contemporary of Maxime, born in the small town of Thagast, was raised in Madaure, and Maxime and he were always friends, despite the difference in their opinions. It is a very sad remark, and one that has often been made doubtless, that this part of Africa which once produced so many great men, and which was probably, since Atlas, the first school of philosophy, is today known only by its corsairs.
Conclusion. Ancient North Africa was more urbanized than Europe. More than 50,000 inscriptions, uncovered during archaeological excavations, confirm the widespread influence of culture, more than anywhere else in the Roman Empire. At that time, North Africa supplied the entire empire with grammarians and rhetoricians. Thanks to a system of education and libraries financed entirely by rich North African notables, cultural vitality asserted itself, in a geographical space where African, Amazigh, Punic, Greek, and Roman influences mix. Personalities, born on the southern shore of the Mediterranean, anchored in the nourishing land of ancient Algeria, have left to posterity manuscripts which, for more than 1,600 years, have contributed to the cultural enrichment of humanity.